Okay. Good morning. Thank you, students, for joining us today. We are focused on the career cluster of agriculture, food, and natural resources. And we have a few panelists here who are going to answer some of our questions and give us some information about what they do, what their career looks like, and how they got to where they are. So we will start with Renee.
Thanks so much, Kelly. My name is Renee Gill. I work at Echo Global Farm up in North Fort Myers. And Echo is a nonprofit. We focus on trying to share sustainable agricultural solutions and options with people who are working with small-scale farmers internationally or with small-scale farmers themselves. Echo believes very strongly in smallholder farming as a solution for hunger in communities where there is food insecurity. And right now I have been at Echo for 7 years, and I am just got a new title. So let me see if I can remember it. But I'm the Internship and Agriculture Training Manager at Echo. So a lot of what I do involves coordinating trainings and making sure that people who come to the farm, whether they are coming internationally or they're from the States, get a well-rounded training in tropical small-scale farming.
Awesome, thank you. And Matt, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your company and what you do.
Sure. My name is Matt Lincolnhol, and I am a landscape architect at Morris-Depew and Associates, which is a landscape architecture, civil engineering, surveying company located in Fort Myers. We've been in the area about 30 years, and I've been here for about 3 years now. Previously, before that, I was in Orlando, working for more design firms, more oriented towards theme park design. For Morris-Depew, we do a bunch of different projects ranging from small scale residential projects all the way up to large, working on Lee Health hospital systems and big resorts and stuff like that. And probably the biggest thing we work with is reclaiming mines, redesigning and reclaiming mines with native plant material so that after mining is finished, the ecosystem is able to take back over.
Sounds super interesting as well. This is really cool. So we have two very different careers, but both kind of fit into that same agriculture category. So Renee, first question, what and where did you study?
So I went to a pretty small private school located in Lookout Mountain, Georgia. It's called Covenant College, and my degree was in international community development, but I actually focused initially on education. So I started off studying to be an elementary school teacher and realized that wasn't quite the niche that I was well suited for. So then I moved into international development and finished my 4 years there.
That's really cool. Matt, same question. What and where did you study?
I studied landscape architecture up in Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina. And that was a 5-year program that's for you have programs throughout the country, and basically there's certain ones in each state. And for Florida, it's the University of Florida or FIU are the two programs that you can get a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture in.
Thank you for that. So students, that's a good thing to keep in mind. Those are the two schools, if you're interested in something like that, to think about and do some research on here locally in the state of Florida. Something also to point out is that Renee started on a completely different path than where she actually is today. So that's something that you guys will learn as you grow up and go through school and have different experiences, different opportunities, that what you think you might be doing, you may not end up doing. And from Matt's perspective, you may go into it and continue and actually end up in that career. But even within specific careers, there's different fields that you can take, different jobs, different opportunities that you'll come across that may end up changing your mind. So I think that there is some statistic out there that people change their careers. I think it's like 3, 4, 5 times. College students change their majors multiple times. I have a lot of my friends that change majors, 2 or 3 different times as they got into their program of study and realized that that's not for them. And sometimes it's just as important to know what you don't like to know what you do like. And you have to try it out to figure that out. Renee, what made you choose the career that you're in? Was there a specific point or opportunity or a trip that you went on or something that made you change your mind?
Well, something that had always been important to me, I am very value driven. And so the career that I wanted to be involved in needed to represent for me the values that I hold closely, which is why my major ended up being community development. I'm really passionate about trying to help solve physical challenges that people have. And so that's kind of what got me started down that path. I ended up working overseas for a few years, spent some time in Egypt, and really just got to see the importance of agriculture and the ability to grow food on a small scale to be very important for the health of families. So when I came back, I was in Washington, D.C. for a couple years, and then I heard of ECHO, and I really liked their approach to agriculture. And at that point, also, I was starting to get really interested in adult education. And so it kind of was a perfect blend of both of those things. And that's what brought me here.
Awesome. Matt, same question. How did you choose your career? Did you always know growing up, or was there an experience or an opportunity that made you think that you wanted to go into this field?
Yeah, kind of speaking to your previous one, I did change majors actually in college from and this kind of leads into this question. I was a turfgrass management major when I first started. The reason being is I grew up in the mountains in North Carolina, and pretty much every weekend we were out hiking or camping or doing something of that nature. And then I kind of started getting interest into golf course, but it wasn't necessarily the maintenance side of it. It was more how they designed golf courses into the land, made them look like they do, and how to challenge the golfers. So I knew I needed to get into, I wanted to get into that somehow. And so I kind of asked the golf course architect, what did he do? I gave him a call one day, and he said, well, you need to get a degree in landscape architecture. So I found the school that was in South Carolina where I grew up, and that was Clemson. And so initially I got into the turfgrass one, thinking that's probably the best option for me to do golf courses. But then landscape architecture was actually the one that was, if you do choose that career path. But I kind of shifted from golf course architecture design to more general design as I guess my interest faded in golf courses.
Matt made a really good point. He had someone that he went to and asked advice. So students, it's very important for you to find a mentor, find someone who's already doing what you would eventually like to do, and ask them for advice. The next question, Renee, we'll start with you. Do you work indoors mostly, outdoors mostly, a good mix?
Yeah, that's actually changed over the years that I have been at ECHO. When I first started, I would say I was working on the farm that we have here probably like 40% of the time, and then 60% in the office. And as my job has changed, that time outside has gotten less and less. So now I would say it's like I spent about 8 hours working on the farm a week out of the 40. So usually works out to be about one full day that I get to be outside and the rest of the time I'm in the office.
Matt, what about you?
I'm pretty similar. I would probably say I'm 75% in the office doing site plans, doing drawings, research, things of that nature. And then probably about 25% of the time is out on site reviewing construction, laying out plant beds and items such as that.
So we'll start with Matt for this question. What does a typical day look like for you? And is every day the same, or is it different from day to day?
I would say time-wise, it's pretty much the same. We're just 8 to 5 is a typical work day. But challenges-wise, it's completely different each day. Some days you can be working on designing a small-scale residential home. The next day you could be working on the Lee Health Hospital where you know they have a bunch of stuff, you know, a lot of requirements and a lot of restrictions and challenges that you have to do to get it actually built. And then some days you'll be out in the field doing tree surveys and going through the swamps and labeling trees and stuff like that. So typically time-wise, yes, it's pretty consistent 8 to 5, but challenges-wise, there's a whole bunch of different ones.
And Renee, same question. What does a typical day look like, and is it always the same, or is it different?
Typical day for me, okay, well, it's always different. Yeah, I don't think I've had like a normal weekly routine in quite some time. I think some of the things that contribute to that is working in a nonprofit, in a fairly small nonprofit. You have to wear multiple hats. And so I'm often pulled in on, I mean, almost any aspect of work, whether it involves needing just another laborer or someone to brainstorm in meetings, things like that. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that's the best way to describe it. Every day is just very, very different. And I have come to really enjoy that because I get the opportunity to have my brain take on like different challenges. And I have found that that actually helps me be able to creatively like brainstorm things that maybe I didn't think were connected, but being so involved in all aspects of the work helps me see connections a lot better and come up with better solutions, which is cool.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about when you're applying for jobs and thinking about what career you want to go into. Do you want something that is the same every day, where you're either sitting at a desk or answering emails, or do you want something that's going to have different challenges from day to day? The next question I have is, what is something that each of you are passionate about, and are you able to, and how do you incorporate that into your career? So Matt, we'll start with you.
I think one thing I'm pretty passionate about, and I kind of hinted on this earlier, is I grew up in the mountains, kind of using the outdoor spaces as recreation. So whenever we get a chance to design a project that deals with conservation lands and incorporating recreational opportunities, whether it be out in East Lee County or we were working on the island in the middle of the river on downtown Fort Myers, just being able to, you know, keep the piece of land the way it is, but being able to design some type of recreational amenities in there, such as hiking trails, camping, or if it has been clear cut, being able to restore it back up to what it was previously. Those are pretty awesome projects if you were able to work on those.
And then Renee, same question. What are you passionate about, and how do you incorporate that?
I would say recently one of my driving passions has been adult education, and I love getting to interact with people who've had a lot of life experience and they're facing challenges. and I really like to help solve those with them. And that's something that in my career, we work a lot with adults who are farmers or who are working with farmers, and they come with really unique challenges and really unique problems. And so I think that's the other thing that I have come to learn that I'm very passionate about, is I really like problem solving. I like looking at something that doesn't have a simple solution and trying to come up with options that work for all parties involved. So it's exciting that I get to do both of those things.
Let's open it up. Students, do you guys have any questions? I've been asking all the questions, so let's see if any of you have any.
What was one struggle you went through to get where you are now in your career?
Oh, that's a very good question. A struggle that you've gone through to get to where you are now. So let's start with Renee.
Okay, can you repeat that question one more time?
I think it was a struggle that you have gone through to get to the point where you are now.
Oh. I mean, I think that, well, if I'm honest, the first job that I ever had I was awful at. And when I think back on it, I have to feel like really bad for that employer, because I just didn't know what I was doing or what the workforce looked like and what the expectations were. And so I had to kind of work through a lot of self-realization, and a lot of, I think, identifying where I had some struggles, which at that point was administration and organization. And I realized that I was not good at that and I had to get better at it. So I had to start trying to practice that and improve at it instead of just try to hide it and avoid it, which is what I was doing in that job. So yeah, that was a struggle. Had a couple of really tough conversations with my boss at the time, but it's better now.
Sometimes that helps you grow and become a better worker, right? Same question to you. Any struggle that you've had to overcome?
Yes, I mean, initially I wasn't accepted into the landscape architecture program at Clemson. I actually had to go to a technical college for 2 years to be able to get into the landscape architecture program at Clemson. And I think kind of one of the main struggles was this landscape architecture, there's so much, I mean, there's a bunch of different routes you can go, and I was trying to focus on golf courses and didn't realize what else was the opportunities out there. And so I kind of pretty much every summer I applied for a new type of job within landscape architecture. I worked at a golf course, I worked at a nursery, I worked at an arboretum, and then I finally worked at a landscape design company. And so I kind of struggled. I didn't know which one to pick. And so when you got out of school, it was like, all right, which one did I like the most? And it kind of led me to where I'm at today. So.
That's awesome. And Matt makes a very good point that you have to try within your field. Like he said, there's so many different paths that you can go, and it's important to try them all out, figure out which ones you like, which ones you don't like. I see that Susie joined us. So good morning, Susie. Thank you for joining us. If you want to kind of introduce yourself, what your role is, what your career is, how it fits into agriculture, natural resources, we'll give you a minute to do that.
Sure. Hey, I'm Susie Hassett, and I work with environmental education here in Lee County Schools. And I'm actually certified K through 12, and I get to work with all the schools in the district to help facilitate environmental education in different ways. So I've learned to drive a bus so I can take kids out on field trips. And you guys may have been out with me last fall when we went into 6 Mile Cypress Slough. And I also help facilitate the gardening programs at different schools. And I actually started out my day at Island Coast this morning, unloading some bricks. So every day is different. I get to do a lot of different things. But I started my career as a zookeeper. So I got a Bachelor of Science in Zoology, And I was working at a couple of different animal parks in Ohio. One of those was the Cincinnati Zoo. And while I was working there, my boss encouraged me to go back and get a teaching certificate so that I would be more versatile and have a lot more opportunities. And that was really wise. So that's been able to benefit me a lot in this job where I have to do all the things.
And the question that one of the students asked was, what is a struggle that you've had to go through to get to where you are now?
I was a dolphin trainer at one time, and that was, you know, my dream job that I had always wanted to do, but I had a knee injury, and the company was concerned about whether or not I would be a liability because of my knee injury. And so they said, really, you know, we need you to resign. And that was a struggle. It broke my heart. But that's also when I got the job at the Cincinnati Zoo. So even though that door closed, another one opened that ended up being more beneficial to me. So that was difficult. And then another thing that happened was moving. So I lived in Ohio, then I lived in Texas, and then I lived in Florida. So when you move around, you got to start over again, and you have to make new contacts, and just getting out there, volunteering if you have to, just to find out what the opportunities are is really key. So if you're willing to show up and work hard, that'll get you a long way. Sometimes even farther than a degree, because people know you and know what you're capable of. So make sure that you do that. If you have the opportunity to show up and do the work, do it.
Good advice. It also helps, you know, volunteering. You can use those references with reference letters to help you get future jobs or get into a specific college or school. Students, anyone else have any questions?
So what is the best thing to you that you do in your field? Like, what is your favorite thing that you have done?
Okay, so your favorite thing that you do in your career, in your field. We'll start with Susie.
Well, right now we're bringing virtual field trips to students. So my favorite thing is that every day is different. On Monday, we were out in Matlacha Pass with a seine net, trying to find out what creatures live there so that we could present that to some fourth grade students next week. And I love to work with all the different community organizations and just be a team member to help them with their outreach, and they help me with my outreach. So it's great to be part of that collaboration. And it's been a lot of fun to do all those different things and see what's going on, and just be a resource for students and for organizations alike.
Renee?
So I have three. One of the things that I really like about where I work is I have a farm right across the road. So anytime I want to get out into nature, I can. I can eat fruit and vegetables that we grow, and that has been such a highlight. We also have baby animals a lot, and that's really, really wonderful. Right now we have baby goats, and that just brings so much joy every day to my life when I need a break. And then I think the third thing, sorry that I have so many, but the third thing goes back to what I was saying about problem solving. I think my favorite thing about working at a small organization is I have gotten to try so many things that I never would have gotten to try. So I'm also a compulsive volunteer. So if anybody's like, we need help with this, if like 2 seconds go by, I'm going to say I can help. And that has really opened my eyes into a lot of different skills and options that I didn't know that I had. And so that has been a really cool thing.
And Matt?
I think probably what I enjoy the most is when a new project comes in and there's the challenge of coming up with something new. A lot of clients will come into our office and ask, you know, they want to build a resort or an amenity or, you know, a resort type pool or a water park, all these sorts of things. And but they want it different than the last person. So it always has to be new, and it always has to be, you know, cutting edge, and just that challenge of trying to obviously meet the client's expectations, but deliver something new every time they, you know, build a project is, you know, just sitting down and drawing and coming up with, you know, 15 ideas for a pool amenity system. And then that gets boiled down to like 3, and then you let the client choose which 3 or which one of the 3 they prefer, and then, you know, just being able to detail it. So it's what I enjoy the most is basically doing a napkin sketch of something, let's just say a pool, and then getting that all the way through documentation to get built, and then signing it off that it's A-okay for the public to use.
Seeing a project come to full completion. That's neat. Students, any other questions?
I actually have a question. What's the highest level of math or science you had to take for your degree?
Yes, let's start with Matt.
Math is, we had in college, we had calculus was our highest level of math, and then for science we had biology. Oh man, you're making me think I'm in college. There was a lot of life sciences in there, so horticulture was in there. Ooh, I'm gonna have to remember it. Come back to me in a second. Let me look it up.
Okay. Susie?
I had calculus, I had advanced statistics, I had graduate level science classes. So genetics, I had biochem, organic chem, regular chem. I had endocrinology, all kinds of advanced physiology. So I have a master's degree in science education and a focus in marine and aquatic. So in my master's degree, I was taking a lot of science.
Okay, and Renee?
With none. So my degree being community development, it was definitely a social science. So the most that I had to take for my degree was statistics. Yep, that's all I had to take.
So I think that's a perfect example of maybe not, you know, specifically going into a field because of the courses that you're taking in science or math, but kind of falling into it because it's more of a passion for you than something, you know, that you were wanting to study. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on what Susie said a couple questions ago, yeah, I've been able to, I think, because I don't have the educational background in agriculture, being able to show up, show your skills day to day, and the consistency has really helped me gain more access into this field. I'm a quick learner as well, but yeah, just not in school.
Matt, did you want us to come back around to you?
Yes, the other one was regional design and ecology, which dealt with regional systems such as, you know, rivers, marshes, forests, and all that. We had a 2 semesters of that, looking at different types of ecological systems.
All right, Ms. Zookeeper, any other questions from your class?
Alexa. Okay. Speaking of like projects from earlier, what was a specific one that was your favorite? And I mean like super specific, like explaining what you did in the project and why you liked it so much. So like when Renee was in Egypt, or when Matt was working at the theme park, or when Susie was at the zoo, like what specific experience was like the most memorable?
Okay, so we can start with, let's start with Renee.
Okay. Does it have to be a good memorable? But definitely have a very memorable one from when I was in Egypt. I actually got, no, this is just such a rabbit trail. I'll say it very fast and then I'll give another example. But I actually tried to travel into Israel and got deported and like put on a plane to Jordan. So that one takes the cake for most memorable, but it wasn't exactly like the best memory. Let me think. Can you come back to me? Because actually, now I can think of another one.
Yeah, we can come back. Susie or Matt, are either of you ready or still thinking?
Oh, there's a lot of good memories. So the theme park that I worked at to start out when I was 18 was Kings Island in Ohio, and there was a safari drive. So the first year I was driving the monorail train, but along with the same advice I gave you, I was like, I want to work with animals. What else can I do? You know, I'm a zoology major. Where can I go? So I was able to work with the education director, and I'd eat lunch with a macaw parrot who'd come up and steal my Dr. Pepper. And the next year I got to start working with the big animals. So I had elephants who would untie my shoelaces and check my pockets for apples. And I got to feed the giraffes and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So while I was doing that, I'd start going over to the dolphin pool and begging over there, hey, can I help you clean anything? Can I help you feed anything? So I hung out at the dolphin pool a couple of years until I got hired to do that. So all those times when I got to work with animals were awesome. There were baby ring-tailed lemurs that I'd eat lunch with, and one would climb inside my shirt and stick its head out of the neck hole just to get warm. I'm like, who doesn't love this stuff? You know, you don't get paid well, but that's the trade-off. You get all kinds of good memories.
Very true.
And Matt, for you?
I'll give you two. I'll give you a good memory and then a not so good memory. It was a good memory, but it was a little scary. Probably my best memory was probably the first project I completed in a theme park was at Legoland up in Orlando. We did a water park splash pad expansion to their existing theme park, and you know it was whenever you're dealing with pool systems so complex as that, it's quite a challenge. And the client was very they wanted to open it at a certain time, and it was just just trying to hit that deadline was a challenge in itself. But the reward was obviously we were allowed to go back in and just see the park while it was being used, and just seeing all the smiles on kids' faces using the splash pads and going on the water log ride and using squirt guns and all that. That's really good payoff to it whenever you're able to see what you designed be used, such as that. And then my other memory deals with also kind of zoological. We did a project for the gorilla habitat at Disney's Animal Kingdom. We were modifying some things, and so you have to go in really early in the morning because you obviously can't be in the cage while the gorillas are in it. So we had to get there at 4:30 in the morning to do our work, which was basically inspect and where we were going to be modifying their cage. And we got back, and then I peeked my head around this door, and probably 2 feet away from me was a baby gorilla, and I was like, I said, "Oh, that's a baby gorilla," and then all of a sudden I hear this just come out of nowhere, and Mama comes running like 2 feet in front of my face, punches the steel cage, and then just like stares at me. And so it was very frightening. And then they were like, "Don't look them in the eyes and just walk away."
That's definitely memorable.
Yeah.
Renee, did you think of something else?
I did. Ah, look at that picture.
Oh, look at the lemur.
So cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, similarly, I have two good memories. One was from the first job that I ever had. I mentioned I worked in Washington, D.C. for a while, And at this time, I was just interning for the organization, and they were hosting their really big fundraising gala. And so I got to go to New York and like attend that even as an intern, as long as I helped a little bit, which I did. But there were like celebrities there. And so I got to meet like the Queen of Jordan and Jake Gyllenhaal and Natalie Portman. So that was a really cool, very wild experience for first job. And then I would say currently at Echo, one of my most memorable experiences was actually after Hurricane Irma here. We had so many trees that were down on our farm and quite a bit of damage. And so for about 2 weeks, the entire staff just all pitched in. And pretty much from sunrise to sunset, we were working on clearing the farm, securing the animals. And that was a lot of hard work, but there was so much reward in just everybody pitching in to try and get our farm back into working shape. And so that was a really great like team building moment. And yeah, I learned like the hard day's work from those couple weeks for sure.
So I have a question that's a little more just kind of factual and probably good for the students to know. What is an average income for the positions that you all have currently? Like what is, you know, when someone would start, what would you come in as? What's kind of a mid? And then if you were top, you know, CEO or ran the organization, what could you expect to be making? So let's start with Susie.
Starting teachers in Lee County are around $43,000 right now, but you have full benefits. And then the career ladder enables you to keep adding to that as you go up. And I know there is a different career ladder for the teachers that are grandfathered, so those are the ones who are making the most right now. But some of them are around $75,000, $80,000. You know, and if you go into the administration side, it goes up from there. So that's pretty good. Typically, that's better pay than you would make at a zoo starting out. Starting out at a zoo, it's about half that because you can start at a zoo sometimes without your bachelor's degree. So it's commensurate with your degree as well.
And Renee?
Yeah, obviously working with nonprofits, which is what I have primarily done, is not the most fiscally advantageous. So here, I think people starting with a bachelor's are in the low to mid 30s. And then I think you can, I have no idea what you can top out at, but I think from when I was snooping and looking up what our CEO makes, it is like just over 100,000 is what he makes. Yeah, so I think most people are more in the range of like 50s or 60s though at our organization.
And Matt?
We kind of have a process for ours. Entry level, which usually when you come out of school, you're not technically a landscape architect. You have to take another qualifying exam afterwards. So generally you come in as a landscape designer, and typically that starts around 45 to 55,000. And then once you gain enough experience and take your licensing exam, which generally you can do that anywhere from 2 to 5 years after you've been working underneath, and you get licensed. We call it a landscape architect. Salary ranges from about 60 to 80,000, so that's probably mid-grade. And then if you were the director of a firm, you can make 100,000 to 150,000.
Are there any opportunities in your field for students who are in high school? So we can start with Matt.
Yes, I kind of would give you guys advice on what I did. It was just go out and explore all the different options that are within landscape architecture, whether it's working at, like, say, the Naples Botanical Gardens, or working at just a nursery, or or you can sign on for a landscape design and construction. That's probably, you're going to learn probably the most you can about that, because you'll be able to see the design side of it, and then also be on part of the construction crews that actually install it as well. And so that's kind of interesting to see what works and what doesn't work. You can go into golf course maintenance and architecture. The biggest employer actually of landscape architecture is the National Park Service. So you can sign on for them and be designing trail systems throughout national parks. Designing, say, if they build a new restroom, you could be designing the landscape around that. There's a multitude. I mean, you can do regional stuff. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. So I would just say, just go out there and figure out what you like and what you don't like.
Good advice. Susie, any opportunities for high school students?
Yes, so there are a lot of organizations around where you can definitely get volunteer hours. But again, if you show up and you have a good work ethic, a lot of those can work into paid internships or jobs. So I would suggest checking some of the locations like the Shell Factory. I know that they've hired high school kids to help with animal care there. Colusa Nature Center definitely has student internship opportunities. IMAG, some of the places like that, Otsego Bay Foundation has student interns. And then also check with vets. I mean, you guys could be a vet tech at a lot of places. There are some high school students I know that are working with vets, and they're doing some care of the animals, cleaning, that kind of thing. And that's a really good opportunity. And then animal shelters are another place that you could go and get some experience. So there are several of those around as well.
Thank you. And Renee?
Yeah, I kind of echo that. I think volunteering is a really easy way to kind of gain experience to see if it's something that you like. At Echo, for sure, we really like, we're not currently open to volunteers, but our volunteer program was fairly robust, and we prioritize giving volunteers, like, not just please weed this, but also trying to show different things and give exposure to different elements of our job and our work. And so I think volunteering is a really good option, at least in my field. Yeah.
Yeah, I think across the board, the more that you put yourself out there, the more opportunities you're going to have and will find themselves. Yes, Susie.
Also check Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
They're always hiring people for Parks and Rec, for summer camps, that kind of thing. So I can't believe I didn't remember that first off. That's probably your best opportunity for paid employment.
Students, any other questions?
Yeah. What would you say is the most difficult part of the job?
The most difficult part of your jobs? Start with Matt.
Probably we do, the most difficult part is we deal with regulations and having to design a project around that while also trying to meet the client's expectations. For example, there are code requirements to get anything built inside of pretty much any municipality in Florida or the United States, and they hold you to a certain standard, and trying to get that, keeping up with those, because they do change quite often. So sometimes you could submit a project and then a month later submit another one and it's not correct because they changed something, and unfortunately you didn't understand that. And so it always kind of becomes a you know, talking with the reviewer at the county or city or wherever you're doing it, the project, and trying to figure out the best route to get the project through.
Renee.
Say the hardest part of my job is because we're a global organization and we work in a lot of different countries. I first get to hear a lot of challenges. There's a lot that is going on with droughts or flooding all over the world, and so you have farmers or people who are working internationally, and they'll come to us kind of saying, we've had a disaster for our farming season, and now what do we do? So there's a lot of kind of news that we hear that's sad and disheartening. And then I think the other thing that is challenging about agriculture in general is that unless you are living there, you don't really know what the right answer is. And so not being able to always help the most effectively can be another challenge. You know, something that we think might work, we don't understand the full picture and it fails, and that's not a fun feeling. So those are some challenges.
And Susie.
Apparently today I'm on the struggle bus with my scheduling, but I think just prioritizing the tasks that need to be done, because for me they are so varied, and there are requests that come in from different places at different times. Ding Darling was calling me this morning asking me to do something, so I'm just trying to keep things prioritized and organized, and keep my schedule moving, and make sure that I'm checking with all my superiors to make sure I'm doing what they think is a priority, not just what I think is a priority. It's probably the most important thing that I have to struggle with and make sure that I do, because I tend to be the type of person that gets carried away with an idea. It's like, oh yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Let's go off on this tangent, and I can't do that. I have to keep myself organized and focused.
I feel you on that one. Yes, same issue, organization, priority. So students, if you can learn those skills now, do that, and then teach us. Any other questions from the students? We have time for maybe two more.
Yeah, we've got about 5 more minutes before we've got to go.
Okay, so maybe one more question.
It's up to you. How many projects do you usually have going on at once? So how many projects do they usually have going on at one time? Like, so that organization and focus, you know, how many things do they have to organize and focus on?
So Susie, we'll start with you. How many projects at one time?
I've got 10 going on at one time. That's the problem. I should not say yes as much, but I do have 2 helping teachers that work with me. And so I delegate out and I ask them to spearhead different things so that we can get all these things done. But I think because we serve so many schools and so many functions, we get requests that have to be handled right away. So there's always a list of things that we want to accomplish. So there's the immediate things, and then there's the wish list of all the other things that we want to get done. So I'm never bored. That's a good thing.
Yes, Matt?
Yeah, we typically have anywhere from 10 to 20 projects per project manager going on at any type of or any timeline of permitting. You know, again, that can be little tiny projects that take 2 to 3 months to get permitted, all the way up to projects that take over 2 years to get permitted. So you're not necessarily working on 10 to 20 a day. It's just you're constantly doing little pieces of them. So.
And Matt, how many people do you have on your team working on those, 10 to 20 projects?
The landscape architecture department, we have 4 people. The engineering side of it, we have about 15, and survey we have, I think, 6. So yeah.
And then Renee.
Yeah, I have less. So I would say I'm in charge of like 3 large projects, and then I help out on like a rotating of probably another like 4 or so at a time. And those 3 are ongoing really at the same time. So I'm kind of switching every day or during the same day, a few hours on each one. And then the other like 4, I'm just kind of popping in and out on depending on need and how I can help.
Okay. Well, any last minute thoughts from any of our panelists? Anything that you didn't get to say that you want to kind of put out there to the students? Okay. So our key takeaways, students, you know, get out there, push yourself, show that you're willing to help, show that you're willing to get involved, show your grit, that you are willing to do the hard stuff and the hard work. Before maybe there's payment involved. Also find a mentor, find someone that's already doing what you think you would like to do to maybe get some advice from them. And time management, it's a skill that you will need for the rest of your life. So earlier you learn it, the better. Anything else? Anything last minute, Ms. Zookeeper?
Okay, this is a question for Susan or Susie, I don't know, Susan. Susie, do you have any advice for working with animals? If I were to be like a vet tech or a veterinarian, do you have any personal advice?
So if you want to, again, work for a vet or any of those places, show up, start asking questions, offer to come on, do a Saturday where you're a volunteer, ask them if they've considered hiring students. I know the one high school student that I know started doing that when she was in 8th grade, and they didn't want to hire her until she was 14, but then she got hired to come and work, and she'll work 3 days a week over at the vet. And she's just doing things like cleaning cages, walking dogs, that kind of thing. But a lot of these places, if you go and you show them your worth, then you have a great opportunity to work there. And I would say, again, the mentor piece of it, if you really like what somebody's doing and you say, hey, I'm willing to come along with you and just be an extra pair of hands, then that can get you a long way. And again, the recommendation that you'll get from that is invaluable.
Sometimes you have to show up and do the not so fancy stuff like cleaning cages to be able to get to those higher levels of doing the more fun stuff. All right, well, if there's nothing else, Ms. Zookeeper, thank you so much for having your class tune in, and panelists, thank you so much for doing this and for participating in our first Career Ed Talk. So,
Thank you
so much. Have a great Wednesday.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.